या ट्रेनिंग इंस्टीट्यूट बटे से कि यम इथिन इथिन बलाय अमा आसान दस्त
Javed and Muzammil.
Good afternoon, everyone. All those who have joined us for this event, I will request you all at the beginning to please keep your mics on mute mode. today's webinar titled Digital Transformation and Emerging Social Media in the Post-COVID Era. This webinar is a part of a continuing series of events in which we invite eminent people from the industry and the academia. And the object is to impart quality experiential education to cater to the increasing demands of the industry. Let me tell you a little bit about our department. The department comes under the Faculty of Media Studies and Humanities. It is one of the leading and important constituent of the Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies, which is located in Faridabad. It's a NAC accredited university with we offer programs right from the UG level to the PhD level in journalism and mass communication. We also run a unique international program. You know, we started this last year. It's the BJMC International Program, wherein we have a collaboration with the Western Sydney University. For today's event, it is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Bhaskar Majumdar to share his insights on the ongoing digital transformation and its impact on media and PR. Welcome, Bhaskar, to our event.
Thank you. I hope I'm audible.
You are audible. We can't see you. Today's topic is about digital transformation and social media, I thought it would be a good idea to take a sneak peek into the digital profile of our guest. On Twitter, Bhaskar Majumdar calls himself Provashi Bengali, which means non-resident Bengali. He posts stuff related to lessons from life, PR and marketing. In fact, I liked his yesterday's post. Everyone wants to true, but no one wants to be honest. Well, I'm not sure if that is about the media friends he deals with day in and day out. We'll soon find that out. Let's cut to his formal introduction right now. Bhaskar is a strategic communication professional with more than 2 decades of experience in corporate communication, crisis communication, public policy, strategy planning, brand building, CSR, events, digital social media outreach, and content creation. He is now associated with French company Aegis and heads the Corpcoms, Public Affairs and CSR divisions there. Very extremely important responsibilities during these COVID times. Earlier, Mr. Majumdar has handled corporate communication at Reliance Industries, at in Star Sports, and has also worked with top communications agencies like Genesis PR, Corporate Communications, Apple, Worldwide, and extremely rich profile and overview. I hope I have summed it well, Bhaskar. Let's now brief the format of the event. We will have the speaker's presentation for about 40 minutes, and then we will have a question and answer session in which you can ask him questions. You can put your queries in the chat box. So we should get going, friends.
Yeah, I hope everyone can see me and hope my voice is clear.
Your voice is clear. I don't know. I mean, let me check if you're visible also, because I can't see you right now.
Yeah. I'm there.
Okay.
Actually, okay. In the top bar, if you scroll, I'm in one of the windows. Yeah.
Okay. So, friends, we are all living in a new normal with new challenges and new opportunities. How is it going for the media people and especially for PR professionals? Let's hear from our guest today. Over to you, Bhaskar.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, ma'am, for the fantastic introduction. And I hope that everyone is safe and healthy. I know these are trying times, and the most critical thing is being healthy. And suddenly with this pandemic and unfortunate lockdown, I mean, everyone has now started becoming tech savvy. Someone like me who has almost 22 years of experience, has seen press releases being faxed and then calling to follow up with the journalists from landline, to a time when we can do Skype, to Zoom, to everything. So for me, it's a complete journey starting from Orkut days to Telegram. So it's a huge learning for me. So I think first of all, because of COVID, I mean there are a lot of negatives aspect towards it, but I think when it comes to corporate communication or journalism or say digital professionals or say public affair professionals, I think for us it has actually opened up a Pandora's box, especially with B2C companies. I've seen a change that all of a sudden because of this pandemic, a lot of companies they have got hit on their sales. A lot of companies or a lot of brands have become very cautious to spend money, and suddenly the shift of uh, uh, different brands, B2B, a B2C company or a B2B company, has suddenly moved from hello, 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 am I audible?
Yes, yes,
Yes,
you
sir,
are.
you're
Yeah, yeah,
audible.
yeah. So all of a sudden, during this pandemic, I have realized one thing that, as I said earlier, that a lot of companies either they have got a hit on sales, or some companies who have become very cautious on spending money on marketing, and largely marketing means it's more of paid media, either a print ad or a dangler or say a TVC. So most of, I mean, I'm not taking away anything from marketing campaigns, but fortunately, unfortunately, marketing campaign means there is a huge spend. Now, with this pandemic, as I said, the brands have become more cautious and the spending on marketing has gone down. If you open up any newspaper, the print ads have gone down drastically. Even for TVs, there are, I mean, huge, rebates in terms of, giving ads. So there, I think lies, there is a huge opportunity for corporate communication people to, manage that lost, arena. And especially with a brand like mine, Aegis or L&T, suddenly the corporate commission department has become a very uh, critical as well as integral part of the senior management. So having said that, there is a huge opportunity for people who are moving into communication. And when I say communication, communication means journalism as well as PR as well as advertising. I club it in one way. Even whenever there is a journalist who is writing a story, I'm sure that the journalist is writing a story for an audience. Similarly, if the PR guy is doing any kind of planning, any kind of campaign, or executing any kind of campaign that is specific to a particular brand, same goes with advertising. So when I say communication, communication is a complete integrated approach from paid writing to earned writing to everything. So one good thing is that the communication department is getting its due credit in every department. And now coming back to this digital transformation which has happened. So fortunately, unfortunately, the lockdown has made everyone tech savvy, and everyone has started now having meetings on Skype and Zoom. Not that it never used to happen earlier; it used to happen earlier also. But earlier there was always the scope of meeting up with people personally, and I still prefer to meet up with people personally because for me, being an old guy in the industry, I find it much more easier to do that rather than doing it digitally. But I can't help it due to the pandemic, and also my head office is based out of France. So Skype and Zoom are the only two or three different ways to communicate to each other. Now coming back to this thing that all of a sudden how it happened because of the lockdown, most of the people who read newspapers or even watch TV for news consumption, for them it became very difficult because people like me who read at least 8 to 9 newspapers in the morning, and during the lockdown I was not been able to get my print editions. Now there is always a need to have that media consumption to be done because fortunately or unfortunately my nature of job is such that I have to be aware of how things are happening around the world and where exactly my brand can fit in any kind of news or anything. So I also took up reading newspapers, either the PDF format. Now there is a huge debate whether the PDF format is the logical way to do it, or is it legal to do it, or maybe the online. So people like me has now become more comfortable with consuming news in the online version. So that is how the digital transformation has happened. Now, When you're talking about social media, there is a different aspect to it. I still remember 6 to 7 years back, whenever I used to go and I used to pitch for a story in any publication house. If the pitch is good and if the journalist has agreed to do the story, then the next day's newspaper used to carry the news. And if you've been lucky, maybe in the evening of the next day, the same news can get into the website of the media house. But now, whenever you're pitching for a story and the story gets approved, the first logical conclusion is that the story will be carried in the Twitter handle of the media house, followed by the Twitter handle of the journalist, and simultaneously in the online version. So by the day the next day's print news comes, it already becomes stale, or you can actually have a follow of action what to do, a call of action to do. So that is how the digital transformation and social media coming into prominence has become during this pandemic time, which in a way is good. In a way, it has its merits, it has its demerits. So, ma'am, can I have the presentation also on the screen so that I can take it forward?
Yeah, I'll just, Bhaskar, why don't you try first? If it can be, you can share, then
Let me check it out.
nothing like it.
Is it visible?
No, not yet. So
Oh,
okay,
no issue, no issue. Then I can. I mean, I have the presentation in front of me.
I'll do it. I'll do it. नहीं, हाँ, off है. Can you see the presentation?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. So now coming back to PR and how PR has been impacted by the digital transformation as well as the emergence of social media. I'll just take a step back and I'll talk about public relations first. So PR as a industry, it's almost 2 to 3 decades back. I still remember 22 years back when I joined this industry. It was very difficult for me to convince my dad that what I do. It was very difficult to explain to him that how things happen in PR. And during those days, PR generally used to be very focused on media relation, and media relation is to be key to any kind of campaign. Although those days, unfortunately, campaigns were not that much in news, but any kind of press release or any kind of press conference used to be more focused on media relations. I mean, if you know a journalist well and if you've been able to articulate your client's viewpoint in a proper way, the possibility of getting the news was much more easier. But those were the days and things moved on, and in last 10 years of time, PR has moved from those earlier days to the newer field of PR. Now it's more of it's a kind of a sophisticated approach to create the right narrative, or to build up a perfect storytelling for their audience. Messaging is something which every PR guy in last 10 years who has completely glued on to. Now it's more focused rather than media relations. It's more of how to create the right messaging, also the right kind of audience. So every news cannot be targeted to every newspaper. So there are specific news which will go to a certain section of media outlets because your target audience is actually consuming that particular news. So last 10 to 12 years, so much of evolution which has happened in PR. And last 5 years, I think social media has also taken a very key spot in the complete campaign for any kind of brand. So in my way, I think COVID has actually fast forwarded the adoption of the digital transformation. Not that this digital transformation, I mean, it would have happened maybe in year 2024 or 25, but because of COVID, I think people, because of the lockdown, were more, keen, and they were more. It was much more easier for them to adopt this format of news consumption. Also, PR industry being a aggregator of news has also tried the level best to to put it in every media platform they can. So the consumption of news, as I said, it's moved from traditional to digital nowadays, and starting from media relations, it has moved to more of strategic narrative, building a strategic narrative, or building up a particular story, and how you use social media or digital media in every campaign. So I still remember earlier days, the focus on traditional media is to be almost 70 to 80%, and the role of social media and digital media is to be only 20%, and those 20% used to be only the digital press releases. Now I think for every brand, that approach or that media mix has changed. Now it's almost 50-50, and I think going forward, the media mix again is going to change, but that is something which you have to check it out in another maybe 1 year's time or 2 years of time. Now I think that digital consumption or digital media focus has become almost 50 to 60%. And when I say digital means multiple things. Digital means social media, where it contains LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, blog. It also means newsletters. It also means blogs, and multiple other ways to communicate with your stakeholders. Now, especially for a brand, either from a PR agency side or from, say, the brand side, when anyone is planning a particular campaign, or a particular focused campaign, the media mix is slowly changing, and maybe in another 6 months of time, the ratio can be completely opposite: 80% of digital and 20% of traditional. But that doesn't mean that traditional media is losing its shine, because it will be always there. With digital media and social media, increasingly the content for consumer is becoming the key thing, because the attention span for any reader, especially uh, the readers in between 80 to 24 years of age, or maybe 26 years of age, the attention span for any kind of content is very less. So there are 4 or 5 key things which one has to keep in mind. Especially in my company, I'm also looking after digital, and in the last 1.5 years, I've understood few things that especially with Twitter and LinkedIn, rather than text, I think short videos work more, and the organic amplification or the footfall or eyeballs, catching up eyeballs, is much more when there are short videos with content which is compelling, which is interesting, and which tells a story. Right. Now, for corporate communication people, it's a the old people like us. It's something we are trying to adopt. This is something which we are trying to learn. It's not very difficult, but there are mechanisms to get it done. Having said that, it also depends that these campaigns, when someone is planning it, it actually depends on what kind of brand they're working with. So a B2B company or a B2C company may have a completely different outlook altogether. A B2C company may actually focus more on digital and less on traditional, whereas a B2B company will, or depending on their products and services, they may focus more on traditional and less on digital. Although digital will be always there, because one major aspect or one major stakeholder for any company now is the internal audience. And as work from is more prevalent, HR or communication people, the best or the only way to communicate with everyone in the company, to interact with the internal audience, I think social media is one of the best choice to have. So earlier times, social media handles used to be handled by only the corporate communication guys. Suddenly, there is a mix of HR as well as communication guys handling the social media handles. So coming back to this thing, that short videos is something which people has to uh, learn, and the copy has to be very interesting. Also, there is a very new thing which has come up, that is new age content. Like in earlier days, people used to write a feature story, or they used to write a edit piece. Now the same edit piece, if it cannot be broken down into a blog post, in a LinkedIn post, in a Facebook post, multiple tweets can be made out of it, and it has to be in such a way that the essence of that particular story and the key messaging should remain the same. So that is something which I call new age content strategy. And that is something for all the communication guys, and even for the journalist, is something one has to pick up. Ma'am, can I have the second slide, please?
Yes, I'll just.
So as I said earlier, a B2B brand will have a completely different requirement because they have a different target audience altogether. Like a company like me, I mean ours, EGC is a French engineering consulting firm, and most of our customers, not most, I mean 100% of our customers are government agencies. Now for us, going digital can be helpful, reaching out to new talent or maybe the internal audience. But when it comes to interacting with the existing customers as well as probable customers, which is mostly the government agencies, we still rely on traditional media. So a good newspaper ad, maybe it will be more advisable for a company like us rather than going digital, because uh, I'm I'm not debating on this thing that government agencies doesn't use social media or digital media. They use, but their consumption is very less, and they still rely on using the traditional way of working, be it print or maybe electronic in a certain way. Even they are not very much comfortable with radio also. So priorities or campaign focus has to be based on what kind of target audience you actually move, what kind of target audience you're planning to target on, what time frame you have planned for your campaigns. Also, for digital media, it's more of real time, it's more of instant, it's more engaging, uh, and that is where the creative part comes in. you know it has to be creative, otherwise people will not spend much time. And the good part is that your reach is more, your spend will be less, it can be customized, and you can reach and you can actually understand if your target audience or your target audience actually is viewing your messaging or the stories you've been trying to put. But there are certain issues also attached to it. Thanks, ma'am. So as I said that the can I have the next slide? Yeah. So the next one, ma'am. Yes, that's it. So as I said, the industry has gone a radical shift because of multiple things. One is the lockdown. Second, the consumption of news has changed. Availability of data, which is now not so costly. Penetration of internet in rural areas, tier 2, tier 3 cities, and also the growth of smartphones. So even my driver, he has got a smartphone, he checks LinkedIn, he checks Twitter. I was surprised to see my driver, going through LinkedIn. And I just asked him, "Ki, why you have a LinkedIn profile?" He said, I've got Twitter, I've got Facebook. LinkedIn is something someone told me it's helpful. So I just checked it out. I'm not very much happy with the kind of content it has, but just to be present in one platform, I am. So it's very nice thing to know that people with limited understanding of technology and limited understanding of content is also using mediums with which they are not very much connected with. Right now, when I say campaigns for any specific brand, be it, as I said, be it B2B or B2C, there is a huge combination of various ways to do it. First is paid media, which is key opinion leaders, bloggers, influencers, YouTubers. When I say YouTubers, for specific brands, for brands like auto companies or mobile manufacturing companies, I think YouTubers have become much more important for the brands compared to traditional. So I was just speaking with my niece, and she wanted to buy a mobile, and I said, you have to go and read through the reviews in various newspapers or magazine. She said, no, I'll prefer to check it out in YouTube, and especially I'd like to see that if technical Guruji has something to say about one particular brand. So technical Guruji is someone who is quite is like the god of YouTubers for specific to handset manufacturing companies. So that is how the consumption or the reliability of millennials, or as I said, 18 to 24 or 18 to 26 years of people has changed. So reliability on a YouTuber is much more than a print newspaper. Also, there is another issue that print newspapers, the content will be there only for one day, and for online also you have to go and check it out. But YouTube is more of someone's sharing about the tips, how you review your device, how you use your technical specs, how you consume news, how you use that particular handset, how much battery life it has, how much technical advantage it has, a one particular brand over other one. So that is how YouTubers or influencers or key opinion leaders have taken that lead from traditional to paid media. Second is earned media. Earned media is mostly traditional, which is print and online. When I say print, print contains business newspapers, mainline newspapers, magazines, business magazines, general interest magazines, and also trade magazines. And online media is, I mean, the online version of all these print mediums, where still the push for the news and the consumption of the news both are earned. So for a PR professional, getting a story in say Times of India or a Hindustan Times will be more of earned media. Whereas if I have to approach a YouTuber or an influencer, it will be more of paid media. Third is share media. Share media is again, there are two types of share media. One share media is my own. I mean, I have got my Aegis Twitter handle, I've got my Aegis Instagram page, I've got my Aegis Facebook page. That is where you push news. Uh, Ma'am, can you go back to the earlier slide? Hello? Yeah, perfect. So social media, as I said, it has got two aspects to it. One is the social media handles, which are owned by the brands. Like my company has got a Twitter handle, my company has got a Facebook page, my company has got an Insta page, my company has got a YouTube page. Now, any time of any kind of news, be it text, be it video, be it creative, for me is easy to push in this platform. Also, there is another way that all the influencers or bloggers, they also have their social media handles. So especially for lifestyle media or lifestyle brands, the usage of various celebrities and using their Twitter handles or Facebook page or Insta post is more of paid. So in social media, there are two aspects. One, you can push it for free, and second, if you're using a influencer, then it obviously it will be paid. And the last one is own media. When I say own media is mostly the website, blogs. Again, blogs. In blogs also there are two different types. One is the official blog where again you can push any kind of news. The frequency and content is completely in your control. And the second will be blogs done by either the influencers or bloggers or celebs, where again it will be paid. So there is a mix of both in blogs, but most of the time, brands, they generally prefer to have their own blogs where their MD or their CEO can reach out to the target audience, especially internal, on what the mission and vision of the company, what is the progress on particular topic, what new things which are coming in, what are the R&D new things which the company is trying to introduce. So website, blog, and newsletter are all three combined can come under owned media, but similarly, like celebs and influencers, they also have their own share of blogs and websites. Now, when it comes to different type of media platforms, traditional is there, digital is also there. Digital is coming into prominence because traditional media slowly, because of this various problems created by pandemic, uh, their reach is slowly coming down. No, but for a PR professional, still the relevance of traditional media will be there because of multiple reasons. One, whenever there is any particular news in the traditional media, especially in a say newspaper, one can be sure that the news which you are consuming or reading, through which the publication house is trying to create a particular image of a particular brand or a company, that credibility and the news is authentic. That is for sure, because in traditional media every news that goes through lots of checks and balances. So getting any kind of news in a newspaper is not easy. So a journalist will write a story, it will go to the desk, then it will go to the editor. So there are multiple checks and balances which ensures that 99% the news which is in traditional media is authentic. It's more credible. And then, you can use various ways like columns, op-eds, and reporting, feature stories, which are very much authentic and credible when it comes to consumption for any stakeholder. Whereas on the digital side, as I said, digital has got two different aspects. One is earned and second is paid. And it gives rise to a lot of issues like, unnecessary forwards in WhatsApp or any factually incorrect tweet or any Facebook post with, factually errors in it can damage a particular brand in a big way. Also, in marketing, there is two ways of different marketing. One is, how to promote your own brand and your services, and second, how you take a dig on your competition. So that is something which is very relevant in social media nowadays and digital nowadays, because there is a paid aspect to it. So you can always have a digital spend to take some kind of dig at your competition, and that actually works because if a celeb or if a influencer is writing something about a particular brand, it's been taken as gospel truth by the consumers or people who are consuming that particular news. So I mean, as I said, it has got its flip side, but again, unfortunately for this nature of pandemic, the consumption of news has to be more digital than traditional. So whenever anyone is consuming news in social media and digital media, one has to be very much careful that if the news is authentic and it's not factually incorrect. Although it's very difficult to do it, but now there are checks and balances been done by various social media platforms also in the digital platform also. Now, as I said, there are two ways to it. Whenever anyone is consuming news in social media, one has to be very much careful, and one has to be very much careful that what they tweet or what they post. Sometimes it's better not to post rather than be in double mind on the authenticity of that particular news. So it's better not to post at all rather than posting something and then deleting it later on. And multiple times, a lot of celebs who have done similar kind of things, they have posted, not only celebs, a lot of journalists, senior journalists who have posted certain news, and after 4 or 5 hours, when it became evident that a particular news is not authentic enough, they have to delete it. And that becomes a big, it creates a big row, and it hits your brand also, as well as your thought process also. As I said, that the requirement for PR professionals as well as journalists as well as digital guys has completely changed. The new normal needs new skills, either you upskill or you reskill. If you have to be in the industry and if you have to interact with your stakeholders and you have to keep your campaign focus in mind, then reskilling is very much required. Like I've got 23 years of experience. I've done my digital courses in last 1 year's time. So I've done multiple, at least 6 to 7 different digital courses from uh, multiple reputed organizations. Because at present, apart from the traditional media, digital has become more important, and unless you understand it, it will be very difficult for you to get it done and get it going on ground. Also, I think little bit of creative bend of mind has to be there, because as I said that when it comes to digital or social, the creative and the content has to be compelling. It has to be interesting so that people come and check out your news. Otherwise, it will be just a news and nobody will pay heed to it. So creative part is something which one has to understand. Also, the basic understandings of how to create a short video, how to draft certain taglines which may be very catchy, and also your news in traditional part also, if you say online also, that news has to be reduced. Like in our company, gone are the days when you used to have 700 word press releases. Now it's only 60 word or 70 word, because the attention span for a professional or for your stakeholder is very limited. Rather than going to a media house or website, now I've seen people going to in shorts and other similar platforms where the content is very crisp, short, and you can browse through multiple content at one go. So as I said, things have changed, and the requirement for the hour for any communication professional is to learn and pick up new trends, like being creative enough to create new age content. As I said earlier, starting from a 700 article, you have to create blog post, you have to create LinkedIn post, you have to create Facebook post, depending on the brand and services. Not that every brand will use Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube at one go. A FMCG company may use Facebook and Insta more than a Twitter, and a B2B company may use Twitter more and LinkedIn more than Facebook and Insta. So it depends on brand to brand how they use it, but understanding of various social media platform has to be there. Ma'am, can I go to the next slide? Should I continue? I'm not been able to see your presentation. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible, but the presentation is not visible.
I cannot see it also. No
I
issue at
know
all. I'll just
I got logged out.
no
Just a
issue at all.
second.
No issue at all. I'll just go on. I mean, I have few points
Just a
in
second.
mind.
Now it's visible, I think.
Yes, it is.
Okay. I just got logged.
Ma'am, if you can go to the third slide.
Is it okay?
Yeah,
Can you
I can
see
see it.
it?
Yeah, I can see
Issues
it.
and
Yeah. I hope others can also see the presentation.
Yes, exactly, sir.
Yeah, just
Perfect.
press F5 so that it will be in a presentation mode.
Yeah. So coming back to the same point as I explained earlier, ma'am, can you go to the next slide? Yeah. So as I said, today's profession has to be more tech savvy and more trend focused. When I say trend, every social media platform has different trends at different frequency. So like Instagram will share certain post in a different frequency during festive time and compared to other times. So every social media platform has its own trend setting and trend focus, which one has to understand as a digital professional, that if I have to use a particular social media tool or social media platform for a particular service or a particular brand, it has to be timed well. So any B2C company, be it a auto company or be it a mobile manufacturing company or maybe a TV manufacturing company, will time their campaigns during festive time, and that is the time when the most of the sales actually goes and gets picked up. So the professional has to concentrate on right messaging, creating the right strategic narrative, and how you tell a story, and also identifying the target audience. And then comes how to put it in a more creative way with the right content, and how it's more consumer friendly, so that the consumer can actually consume the news in less time than it's needed. So today, also there is another issue that in communication only, the line or the KRA or the focus of communication professionals is changing drastically, right? And I still remember 7 to 8 years back, whenever I used to interact with different corporate communication heads of different companies, their KRA mostly used to be getting stories or getting a particular campaign which is specific to any services or for a brand to get going. But now suddenly with COVID, there are a lot of other aspects which is attached to corporate communication, starting from traditional outreach to video production to event development to brand marketing to media planning, media buying. So it sounds very odd that, how can PR professionals or corporate communication professionals can actually get into media buying and media planning. So as I said earlier, because of this COVID situation, the company has become, almost every brand is becoming more cautious, and the marketing spend is going down. And to have that eyeball in front of their customers or the stakeholders, every brand is trying to have, the corporate commission department to get that news flashed. And when it comes to news to get flashed, media planning or media buying comes along with it. So now, earlier times, a simple press release is to be, sent across to several media houses, as well as on online versions of different publication houses. Now those things has completely changed. Now more of paid media has also come into, the kitty. Hello.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is the
So
slide you wanted, right?
yes. So one has to, keep in mind whenever anyone is, planning for any particular campaign or any kind of, storytelling for a particular brand, irrespective of their services and product. One has to keep in mind that, the consumption pattern has changed. Your stakeholders are available everywhere, be it traditional, be it online, be it digital. The consumption style has changed. It has become more creative. It has become more compelling. The traditional way of presenting a particular news is slowly, changing. I still remember, I got an interaction of my MD done in CNBC TV 18, and unfortunately, my MD was not been able to watch it live. So when I called him, I said, "Ki sir, in another 15 minutes of time, CNBC is going live on. They're going to showcase the interaction they had with you." He said, "Unfortunately, I'm in a call, so I'll not be able to do it. I hope they are putting it into YouTube." So that is how things have changed, even for, not only print media, also for electronic channels. The consumption pattern for people has changed. Now maybe I'll not go for CNBC directly, or I'll rather prefer to go to the, YouTube channel of CNBC TV 18 to check out a particular news. And also for YouTube and other social media handles, the news is already there. So you can actually browse and you can check it out the news and follow up news and then plan accordingly. So content is something is always will be there, and content will always be king. Just that the way content is been, created has to be bit quick, and it has to be more crisp, small, and it has to be more compelling. Technology is going to rule always. And as I said, for me, it was quite a journey from moving from Orkut to, Telegram. I've learned a lot of things, in the journey. And I'm sure in maybe another 2 to 3 years of time, there will be multiple more platforms which will come into progress. So like, Telegram is something which I've just picked it up just 2 weeks back. Now there is something called Signal also. I'm not tech savvy, but slowly I'm trying to pick it up, because as I'm being handling the marketing communication for a particular brand, I have to be aware of what kind of different media platforms are there in the market, and how, different stakeholders is consuming it. So in short, that is how, the digital transformation, or the emergence of social media has happened in last, say, 1 years of time. And I'm sure that, more is going to change, because, the reliability factor, if you leave behind the reliability factor, I think all the other aspects of digital media or social media is much more easier to consume, because almost everyone nowadays carry a smartphone, and checking out a Twitter handle or a Insta post, or going Facebook live, or maybe participating in Twitter chat. These are all new avenues for every brand to, to come into prominence, and use this platform for their own news, or own visibility. So in all, that is how the digital transformation has happened. And as I said, uh, unfortunately, COVID is something which is not going to go away in another 3 years, 3 months of time, or 5 months of time, or maybe 6 months of time. If it happens, it's good. But if it's going to stay, then the consumption of news will be in the same pattern, and innovation is going to happen. Like as I said, every morning I generally, apart from browsing the traditional media, because that has become a habit for me, to have the morning tea, as well as, browsing through Times of India and Hindustan Times and Economic Times. Side by side, I also go through InShorts and other websites to check out for news. Because one good thing about social media or digital media, there is no restriction of space. So if you take Times of India or Hindustan Times, there is always a restriction of specific pages, from 17 to 18 pages to 24 pages. Now because of lack of advertising and the advertising value going down, most of the newspapers, traditional media newspapers have cutting down on their pages. But fortunately for digital media, there is no restriction. So give you example, I used to handle a auto brand, and that auto brand always wanted to get publicity or visibility in a particular newspaper. And in that particular newspaper, there were three people covering that particular auto beat. But same publication now has got only one journalist on the traditional part, but almost 17 journalists on the online version. So that's how even the pattern or thought process from the media house has also changed. So one has to understand that pattern, also how news is getting consumed, how different stakeholders and different geographies is consuming it. The new thing is microblogging. I mean, I've seen multiple brands, especially B2C and lifestyle brands, are, I mean, using microblogging in a completely different way. So in microblogging, you can actually target a particular city, in a particular place in that particular city, a specific target audience in that particular place to reach out to give you messaging. So it has become so crisp and so targeted. And I'm sure that in days to come, innovation is going to happen. And to be with time, as communication people, we always have to pick up these new trends, and we have to go along with the technology, and we have to pick up different ways of communicating with our stakeholders. Right, ma'am? I mean, is there anything else I can add on? Otherwise, I will be happy to take the questions.
Kind of. Okay. Thank you so much, Bhaskar. It was really an enlightening session for all of us. Coming from you, I mean, you're in the midst of things, in the thick of things.
In fact, I'll just add on one thing. I mean, I've taken multiple classes in other colleges, but this is the first time I'm actually showcasing a presentation. I thought it would be good to showcase your presentation, but later on I understand that impromptu is much better to deliver you. Yes.
The presentation can only be just a guide. What you say
Exactly.
is that really mattered.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I open the floor now for questions, and I'm sure some of you might have some questions in mind. You can unmute yourself and ask the questions.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, my name is Umar Iqbal. I'm a PhD research scholar at Islamic University, Jammu and Kashmir.
Okay.
Sir, my question is how far there is a Digital India initiative by the government of India, that is the latest forum of National E-Governance Plan.
Yeah.
Sir, how far is it? Sir, how far it will have an impact on lives of people, although it is in the implementation phase? It was launched in 2015, July 1st, 2015, by the Honorable Prime Minister of India. And we have been telling that I have been reading from a lot of research papers and books that it has gone from the execution phase to implementation phase, but the changes are not visible on the ground according to research papers and books. So how do you think that this will certainly transform the e-governance status of the overall country in coming years or in coming days? Although the basic pillar of this Digital India initiative is to connect to the rural areas, which we all know that those rural areas are not connected via internet. So, sir, what is your opinion on that?
See, I will not like to comment specific on government initiatives, but to put things into perspective. See, even with vaccination, I think everyone who has to get vaccinated has to go through a website, and that is the first step of going digital. Second, using mobility, using caller tune to deliver your message is something which the government has done fantastically well. I mean, whether you like it or not, but you have to go through it. And the basic principle of any kind of communication is hammering your messaging multiple times at multiple media platforms so that people get hang of it. So I think in years to come things has to change, and it will go digital, and especially into in a sector where I work in, there are multiple government projects we work on, And in last almost say 2 to 3 years of time, most of the bidding for this projects have gone digital rather than getting a tender opening like earlier times. There used to be time, people used to come to a room and there is a specific number of people who will be inside and then the tenders will open. Now things have suddenly changed and things are getting digitalized. So rather than sending or supporting papers in a hard copy format now, almost every companies, whenever they're going for any kind of tendering from the government side, is taking the digital route. So government or private sector or common people, they have to have that understanding and knowledge of digital going forward, because things are going to change. I hope I've been able to answer your question.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, so I see some questions on the chat box here.
Okay.
Jaspreet Singh, if you want, you can ask the question yourself. You can unmute yourself and ask.
Okay, ma'am. Hi, sir.
Hi.
Yeah, my question to you is, sir, as we know that when we talk about PR shifting to online, the target audience of the PR professionals mainly is the urban millennial and urban Gen Z populace. But PR involves reaching out to as diverse population as it can be possible. So how do we create brand awareness in the rural or the urban adult population?
See, I'll give a small example. I mean, to be very frank, digital consumption of news is much more in tier 2, tier 3 cities, right? If you see the website hit or the new consumption of Times of India online vis-a-vis Jagran is multifold. So I think in rural area also, because of data penetration and thanks to geo availability of data is now something which people can afford, and also a lot of this new I'll not say Chinese brands, but brands which are offering low cost smartphones. I think consumption of news in a different format, it's more of regional language format. The consumption is more in tier 2 tier 3 also. So not only that, in tier 2 tier 3 cities, depending on the brand and as I said, depending on services and products, there are multiple ways to do it. So maybe a small dangler campaign or a billboard campaign in rural areas, or maybe the roads which are connecting the key cities with key mini metros, billboards and danglers can be used for a better messaging. But when it comes to consumption news, I think rural areas are consuming the news equally as efficiently as and people in metros are. And to be very frank, I also consume news which is in Hindi, especially Jagran and Rajasthan Patrika in my mobile only. So I think things are changing and things are going to change more. The more the data penetration will be and the more affordability of handsets will be easier. I think tier 2, tier 3's consumption of news and consumption of different media platforms will be much more than the metros and mini metros. Have I been able to answer your question, or you want to? Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's another question, and that's from Arpita Vats. I'll read it out.
Yeah.
So she says, when you say media mix has shifted to digital, are we witnessing the slow
I can see the
some
chat.
of the big American publications?
Yeah.
Some of the big American publications have already shut. So should PR forget the front page of TOI or RET?
Not exactly. As I said, in India, see, Indian market and American, the way US function is completely different. Traditional media, the emergence or importance of digital or social media is more nowadays compared to traditional, but traditional will be always there. The relevance will be always there, because as I said, that there is a thumb rule that, whenever I am reading a news in Times of India, Hindustan Times, I know there are at least 4 to 5 different checks and balances before the story has gone to bed. So it's not like that anyone can put a LinkedIn post and everyone is following it. So I mean, the authentic way of reading news is more credible in print media rather than social media or digital media. In my WhatsApp status or in my Twitter handle on my Facebook page, I can write anything. But even if I'm a journalist in Times of India or Hindustan Times, I cannot do the same thing. So the prominence or reliability will be always there. And also, there is set section like, government agencies, NGOs, they always prefer to go for ads in the print area. Why? Good, bad, ugly is something to debate on. So I think the ad revenues certainly has gone down, but in festive season again it will go up, and there will be huge revival for all media houses, especially the print media. So I don't see any possibility of traditional media going down. Yeah, obviously, digital media will get into prominence and may share same kind of volume with traditional media, but traditional media is not going to go down.
Okay. Kritika Sharma, you have a query? Would you ask yourself or Kritika?
Hey, Kritika is saying, when you say media mix, are you saying that a complete shift to online is never going to happen and the traditional sources will always remain there? Yes, Kritika, I know why as I mentioned in my earlier answer, the media mix may change, and trust me, the media mix depends on company to company. A brand like Colgate will or may think of digital more than traditional, but a company like mine or maybe Delhi Metro or maybe L&T will still have the traditional part more than digital, because fortunately, unfortunately, my target audience, like some joint secretary or some under secretary in a particular government department, is not going to go through say in shorts, but he's going to read newspaper. He may not read Times of India, but he's going to read Jagran or Rajasthan Patrika or Lokmat, and I'm sure they will be reading Times of India and Hindustan Times also. So depending on the consumption of the news and the stakeholders, it depends what kind of media mix you have. Trust me, when I say media mix, online can never be the only source, or tradition can never be the only source. This pandemic has taught us that there will be always a balance to it. And depending on what kind of campaign you're doing, if it's a mass media campaign, then it has to be, the media mix has to be different. It has, if it's a targeted campaign, like if I'm targeting specific government departments for a particular news, then the traditional part will be more. But things may change, as I said, in last year, 1 year's time, things have changed drastically. Things are again going to change. But this is my thought that, the media mix always going to keep changing in terms of ratios, depending on campaigns, depending on brand, what type of services, what type of, brands they are going to communicate. So it will be a mix always.
Jaspreet is raising another valid point about trust factor. Jaspreet, would you like to unmute yourself and speak?
Yeah, ma'am. I wanted to ask about the trust factor and how it differs when we talk about the audience that tends to trust the traditional sources of news more than the online sources. So how do we deal with that problem?
See, the consumption of news, as I said, has changed from completely traditional to bit of traditional and bit of digital. Now, a marketer or a communication guy can always try their level best to convey a particular message or can tell a story. It's completely up to the audience or the stakeholder how they consume that particular news. So in my view, a particular piece of news or a thought process or a writing or an article is more authentic in a print media, as I said earlier, because it goes through a lot of checks and balances. And when you're consuming news and forming an opinion from the digital platform or the social media platform, one has to use your own discretion to understand that if that news is authentic or not. But to be verifying, there is no check and balances in digital format or in social media platforms. So you and me can write anything in Facebook against any particular brand. I mean, if you use Twitter multiple times, you'll see multiple people complaining against particular specific brands, and also the brands have understood the importance. And nowadays, if I say anything against a particular brand, or if I convey my displeasure on a particular service for a particular brand in Twitter, the reaction from the company is much more faster. I still remember my dad used to be in Department of Telecommunication, and we used to have a telephone, the older telephone in 1982. And luckily for us, as my dad used to work in Department of Telecommunication, whenever there used to be any kind of error in the connection, it used to get fixed. But our neighbors, they used to wait for almost 1 month for MTNL come to their rescue. But nowadays, I mean, if I write anything on just giving a random example that my internet speed is not right, tagging Airtel, it takes hardly 1.5 hours or 2 hours for them to respond to me. So brands have also actually understood the importance and the criticality of social media handles, and the only way to make it happen and make it more engaging is to use uh, authentic news, and to be very I mean, one has to think twice if the news is credible or not. Posting a particular news is very easy, but deleting after 4 hours is something which hits your brand. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, so we'll come to the last question. I think there's nothing there on the chat. I have a colleague of mine, Soumya. She teaches public relations in the department to our students. She has a question. She says that you're speaking about paid media, paid content, influencer marketing, but PR, unlike marketing, is organic. It is done through influence and relationship. So are you suggesting PR is the new marketing?
Kind of. PR has always been the new marketing. See, I mean, not specific to the paid media in digital format. Paid media used to be there earlier also, right? Mm-hmm. So 10 years back also, the reliability factor for a consumer was more on reading a particular piece of news rather than going for advertisement. But that doesn't mean that taking away any kind of I mean, advertising has its own space. But everyone knows, I mean, whenever any consumer who's consuming news in traditional media or digital media knows that advertisement is a paid medium, and it's much more easier to get your own messaging with all kind of bias to get in. But whereas if you're consuming the news in a traditional newspaper or even the online version of that media house, the credibility is much more. So I don't think that paid media is going to rule, but obviously it has taken a sizable position in every campaign focus.
No, so this is like when you're having when PR is engaging an influencer.
Yeah.
Obviously, an effective messaging is like when an expensive ad may not carry the message as much as a article by a journalist.
Yes.
So when you're using a paid influencer, does that impact PR trust?
At certain times, yes. Like I'll not name people, but I think the greatest examples are YouTubers. So whenever there is any YouTuber talking about one particular brand and one particular product, the lot of times they only highlight the good parts, and they always somehow put it in a very subtle way about the negative aspects. Like I'll just give you an example talking about a particular car. The YouTuber will always talk about the USPs of that particular vehicle, and maybe if the vehicle is not giving good mileage, maybe he will mask it in a such a way that the messaging is there, but people are not been able to understand. So in paid influencer marketing, especially with influencers, when it comes to YouTubers as well as Insta celebs. There is always a way that you hype the certain part and you promote certain aspects of a brand or a product.
My net is really acting funny now. So thank you so much, Bhaskar. We really had a very good session. I mean, it was, yeah. So I hope you also enjoyed, and I will request Dr. Aman Vats. He is the HOD, Head of Department Journalism and Mass Communication. I think sir is here already. Sir, yeah, he is here.
Hi, Bhaskar. Hi, everybody.
Hi, sir.
First of all, Bhaskar, sir, thanks a ton for joining us. We are
Pleasure, sir.
Because whatever deliberations you shared with us, I'm quite sure my students were like, and as it was apparent from their questions also, they were lapping it up, making their notes, and I'm quite sure once you come physically and meet them, they would have many questions to ask to you. So
I'm sure.
Thank you very much for joining us here. Thanks a ton.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks. It was my pleasure, sir.
Sorry, sir. And I'm really grateful to you for enlightening them, and I'm really happy that you all were making notes. So please do keep deliberating. Though I don't agree with Jaspreet's all questions, but then he has a liberty to ask what he asks. But then that is my job to teach him that where he needs to say what. But then in any case, I was so happy that you took all the questions in your stride and you try to answer them as reasonably as possible. So thanks a ton for that. And I just once we open up, like once the thing starts getting back to normal, you would be kind enough to visit here physically also. So
I would be happy to, sir.
Yes. Thanks a ton, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bhaskar.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. Thanks for the opportunity, and I hope I've been able to, share my thoughts. As I said earlier, also during my earlier discussion with you, I'm not a regular teacher, but whatever I say is something which I've learned throughout my 22 or 23 years of experience, and that is how.
And especially with in fields like this, PR and advertising or journalism, hands-on industry experts actually impart a lot of knowledge and through their experiences.
Yeah.
So it was really good. Thank you so
much. Thanks a lot, ma'am. I'm logging off now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.